Have you ever wondered why some women walk into a room and the air shifts? Not because of their beauty, but because of their being. They don't chase, they don't beg, they don't perform, and yet the world seems to rise to meet them. It is not magic, it is not manipulation. It is something far older, something primal and remembered, but rarely lived. These are not women ruled by hunger. They are not seeking rescue, approval, or proof of worth from male attention. Their magnetism is not strategy, it is soul. Because once a woman has turned inward and touched the eternal, not in theory, but in aching, sacred practice, she no longer moves from absence. She moves from overflow, and men, who are more attuned to hunger than they'd ever admit, feel it instantly. To understand her is to step into the terrain of depth psychology and spiritual discipline. William James called it the subliminal self, that vast, unconscious sea beneath the ego, where the true self waits, not in passivity, but in untamed power. These women have met their subliminal selves. They have wrestled with their shadows, blessed their wounds, and stopped outsourcing their divinity. They are not trying to get love. They are love in motion, embodied. This is where the chase ends, because no man can complete what she has already made whole. And yet, paradoxically, this is when he arrives. Not drawn by the games of seduction or the mimicry of confidence, but pulled like gravity toward her stillness, a stillness forged in the fire of her own becoming. She no longer screams for recognition, because she has become the witness of her own soul. Can you feel it? That quiet force that doesn't need to speak loudly because it lives in alignment. This woman does not flirt with chaos. She orders her inner world like a stoic queen. Marcus Aurelius would recognize her. Her discipline is emotional. Her ritual is clarity. Her boundaries are not defenses, they are altars. She doesn't lose herself in the chase because she's already found herself in the silence. When she is overlooked, she does not panic. When she is desired, she does not cling. She has integrated both rejection and admiration as equal illusions, shadows cast on the wall of the cave. What matters is not whether she is chosen, but whether she is choosing from her soul. This is spiritual habit 1. She stops chasing love because she has made love her state, not her goal. And when you too can cross that threshold, when you stop begging to be seen and begin seeing yourself as you are, beneath the masks, that's when the world begins to echo your truth. Because the woman who lives from soul becomes the mirror for every man's longing to remember his own. She is not the girl who waits by the phone. She is the woman who waits on no one. Not out of pride, but out of presence. Because once a woman has crossed the threshold from fear into sovereignty, she cannot unknow her power. Her time is no longer a gift she gives freely to uncertainty. Her attention becomes sacred currency. Her energy is not spent trying to be loved. It is invested in being aligned. This alignment is not a fantasy of perfection. It is built in the dark, in the quiet hours where she sits with the ache of her past, tracing the outlines of every wound that once convinced her she was not enough. She doesn't bypass pain. She walks directly through it, because she knows now that what you avoid controls you, but what you face transforms you. This is where the second spiritual habit begins to emerge, the radical reclamation of projection. James taught us that what we do not own in ourselves, we project onto others. And women, when taught to silence their ambition, sensuality, rage, or power, often unconsciously assign those energies to the men they desire. They make him the source, the fire, the savior. But the awakened woman sees through this. She catches herself when she begins to idolize. She no longer chases the one who gives her butterflies, because she knows now the butterflies were never about love. They were about survival, trauma bonding, nervous system chaos mistaken for passion. She does not romanticize dysregulation anymore. She recognizes it as a call to return inward. When a man enters her life, she no longer asks, "Will he choose me? What part of me is he reflecting back? What lesson is he carrying on his skin?" Because she has learned to decode her attractions. She knows that lust without consciousness becomes repetition. She doesn't just want chemistry, she wants compatibility with her peace. She does not call it fate when a man triggers her abandonment wound. She calls it shadow work. And this is spiritual power. To know your unconscious is to stop being governed by it. To stop chasing men who are just echoes of your unmet father, your first rejection, your forgotten dreams. She holds herself now. She reparents the girl inside who once chased love like breath. And in doing so, she creates a new inner architecture, one where safety lives inside her, not in his arms. This woman is no longer confused by attraction. She studies it. She asks what it reveals about her unfinished business. And when she integrates what was once disowned, she becomes magnetically whole. Men don't know why they're drawn to her. They just feel something ancient and true in her presence, as if she's not searching, but remembering. This is what makes her irresistible. A woman like this no longer views solitude as a sentence. She sees it as sanctuary. She knows now that the external world mirrors the internal state, and so she does not fear being alone. She seeks it, not as an escape, but as a sacred preparation. She is not waiting for someone to complete her story. She is writing it in real time, with blood and beauty, with boundaries and breath. The third spiritual habit is this: she cultivates devotion over desperation. In a world that profits from a woman's insecurity, she becomes dangerous the moment she commits to self-devotion. Because this kind of woman does not need to be rescued from herself. She has befriended the very parts of her psyche she was once taught to shame. She wakes each day and listens, not to the noise of expectation, but to the whisper of her soul. She creates rituals of stillness, of embodiment, of prayer, not to some distant deity, but to the divine flame within. She may dance, she may journal, she may walk barefoot into the woods, or sit in the soft dark, with tears carving quiet lines down her face. But every act is a homecoming. This is what men feel when they meet her. Not perfection, but presence. Not performance, but power. She has given up trying to be impressive. She is now simply true. Desperation is the mark of disconnection, but devotion is the mark of divinity. And her devotion is not to a man, it is to her own becoming. She doesn't ask, "What does he want from me?" She asks, "What does life want to express through me today?" It is this orientation toward the soul and not the script that magnetizes love without effort. Because when a woman is that alive, that self-honest, that fiercely connected to her own rhythm, she becomes the invitation, not to a fantasy, but to reality, to presence, to depth, to evolution. Men may stumble into her life hoping for comfort, but they will soon realize she is not a resting place for the unconscious. She is the mirror that reflects their own need to rise, not for her, but for themselves. And should he rise, not from guilt, but from love, love for his own dormant nobility, then she will open, not out of obligation, but out of resonance. Until then, she waits, not with bitterness, but with grace, because she knows, if love must be chased, it is not love, it is hunger wearing a mask, and she no longer feeds what drains her, she feeds what grows her. This is the spiritual woman's quiet rebellion, to become so deeply rooted in herself that no man can uproot her peace. She has walked through the valley of emotional starvation. She has tasted the bitterness of breadcrumbs and begged in silence for love in its most diluted form. She has contorted, shrunk, overgiven, over-apologized, worn the masks of cool girl, good girl, low maintenance, until her reflection in the mirror was barely recognizable. But now she remembers. She remembers that she is not here to be consumed. She is here to be witnessed, not as a performance, not as an idea of feminine worth, but as a living embodiment of consciousness in female form. This remembrance did not arrive easily. It came in seasons of collapse. It came after betrayal cracked her open, and she realized it was not them breaking her. It was life breaking the illusion that she ever had to earn love at all. So she no longer bargains with life for scraps of affection. She demands nothing, and yet everything comes to her. Because here is the paradox of the spiritually integrated woman. The less she needs, the more she receives. Not because she manipulates the universe with her vibration, but because she becomes transparent to truth. She no longer plays roles. She no longer crafts personas. She no longer needs to be desired to feel desirable. She knows her worth in the marrow of her bones. This is what William James hinted at. The higher faculties of the human spirit are not accessed through striving, but through surrender, through interiority, through spiritual muscle forged in the gym of solitude. He wrote of the twice-born soul, the person who dies to illusion and awakens into freedom. She has become this twice-born woman, and with this rebirth, she no longer perceives love as a transaction. She sees it as transmission. She is not waiting to be chosen. She is listening for what aligns. And that listening, that feminine discernment, is terrifying to men who are still performing masculinity rather than embodying it. They cannot seduce her with promises of forever. They cannot confuse her with flattery or gains, because her nervous system no longer flinches at silence. She is not addicted to the chase. She is addicted to the truth. And the truth is this: no man can provide what she hasn't already given herself. She has become her own inner masculine, present, protective, unwavering. Her own inner father, her own safe place. And so when a man arrives, he is not needed, he is welcomed. Only if he matches her clarity. Only if he too has met his own darkness and risen with humility, not ego. She would rather wait years in sovereign stillness than rush toward a love built on fantasy. Because her love is no longer a gift she gives to be kept. It is a mirror she holds to see who will stand beside her unafraid. There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, when the chase simply dies. Not because the desire for connection disappears, but because the illusion that it must be pursued evaporates. She no longer believes that love must be earned through exhaustion. She no longer clings to men who offer fragments and call it affection. She no longer bleeds for the potential of someone's soul, hoping they'll awaken if only she loves them enough. Because she has come home. There, in the quiet space within, she has learned to hold herself, to touch the abandoned corners of her psyche with compassion, to say to the inner child, the wild woman, the wise elder within, "You are safe here. I see you. I choose you." This is not about being high value for the male gaze. This is not about dating tactics or feminine energy as a performance. This is about spiritual gravity. A woman in spiritual gravity does not chase, not because she's cold, but because she is rooted. She attracts not by pulling, but by being, by standing in the fullness of her paradox, soft and fierce, yielding and immovable, open and discerning. She is not perfect, but she is whole, and that wholeness emits a frequency that speaks louder than flirtation or charm. It says, "I will not chase you, because I have chased myself into the depths of my becoming. I have turned toward my wounds, and I did not flinch. I have met the shadow, the shame, the silence, and I stayed. I have cultivated a love that does not need an audience. So if you come correct, come clean, come real. This is the revolution. No more outsourcing worth to the gaze of a man. No more contorting for chemistry. No more mistaking attention for affection. She is not here to be chosen like an object. She is here to choose, not from pride, but from presence. And when love arrives, not as rescue, not as a fix, but as a resonance, she will know. Not from the high of being wanted, but from the deep, steady knowing of being met. There will be no chase, only recognition, only invitation, only truth. And so she waits, not in longing, in wholeness, in quiet readiness. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button, and I'll see you next time.